would like to start with a quick welcome speech. My name is Fabian Lehmann. I'm the president of the Swiss-Canadian Chamber of Commerce here in Western Canada. And I would love to welcome our sponsors, our partners, and all our guests. They are here tonight, so thanks so much for coming. I think it's a perfect weather outside to be inside and have a wonderful panel here. Let me start with some special welcomes. So we have the panelists here, and I will call those names down, and then maybe you can already come up front and take a seat on your chairs. So we have from Lufthansa Group, we have Alexander Frigo. Welcome. We have from Switzerland Tourism, we have Oliver Weibel. We have Rolf Nielsen from TransLink. And we do have Wendy Aves from the Vancouver Airport. So a big welcome. Nina will take over and talk a bit more later, but please have a seat, and I just tried to get my welcome remarks here as quick as possible. A few house rules. As you have seen, we take videos and we take photos. I hope you're happy with that. We will share those pictures and videos at the later stage, just so that you are aware of. You have seen there is a bar outside where you have tickets you can use. It's also a cash bar. You get with the ticket, you get an alcoholic or a non-alcoholic beverage. As always, please drink responsible, but feel free to go there. We close that during the panel. And food will be served afterwards. There's a good selection of food which will be served afterwards, after this panel discussion and the Q&A. I also would like to welcome the Consul General, Thomas Schneider. He is here with us. He will have a few welcome remarks later on as well. Yeah, it's the first time we have that SCCC Sustainability Panel as an event. We are very excited. It's focused on tourism and transportation. I think that microphone is I'm not sure if I stand at the wrong spot here. So yeah, we are excited to have that panel and get some tough questions for the panelists. For those, they do not know the Swiss Canadian Chamber of Commerce, just a few words about our organization. We are founded.
If I just try turning this off,
sure.
That might be the issue.
Here we go. Oh, much better. It's a little bog here. So we were founded in 1985, and we connect business, entrepreneurs, individuals, as well as companies within Canada and Switzerland / Europe. We are a not-for-profit organization, and we are very active in BC. We are active in Alberta as well as in the prairies. There is also a pillar in Montreal, and there is a pillar in Toronto. And yeah, we are very, very much connected with local organizations. We are having a good ties to the communities here, businesses, politicians, as well as the consulate as well. I also would like to welcome and thank our sponsors, which is Lufthansa Group. There is also people here in the back from the Lufthansa Group, so thank you very much for being a sponsor. We rely on sponsors as a not-for-profit organization. We have also Switzerland Tourism as a sponsor, which is Oliver Weibel here representing, and we have our partners from the airport and from TransLink. So thank you very much for making time and being here with us. Last but not least, just quick about the door prize. You probably have seen that in the invitation. We will have the drawing at the very end. It's a great door prize we have. It's 8 days travel pass, first class for 2 people, which is also sponsored by Switzerland Tourism. And we will have the drawing after the networking and cocktail reception. So stay here. If you want to win that prize, you need to be present. Well, now with that, I would love to give the word to the Consul General here, Thomas Schneider. Thomas, please.
Thank you, Fabian. Well, distinguished guests, members of the Swiss-Canadian Chamber of Commerce, Western Canada, ladies and gentlemen, industry leaders and friends. It's a profound honor to address you today as we explore the vital intersection of sustainability in transportation and tourism. But first, let me thank the SCC for organizing this event, for your initiative, and all the panelists, the moderator, and the sponsors for their engagement. As a representative of Switzerland, a nation deeply committed to mitigating climate change, I'm eager to briefly share our nation's climate policy framework and insights from our sustainability initiatives. Climate change is one of the most complex and multifaceted challenges of our time. Its effects ripple through global economies and societies, underscoring the urgency of concerted action. Transportation and tourism are critical sectors with significant environmental impacts. The choices we make today will determine the legacy we leave for future generations. Switzerland has long recognized the imperative of environmental responsibility and has played the pioneering role in developing sustainable solutions. We have set ambitious goals for ourselves, aiming for net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, along with an interim target of at least 50% reduction from 1990 levels by 2030. These goals are enshrined in our federal legislation and are the heart of our national climate policy. The backbone of our policy approach is the CO2 law, a comprehensive framework that combines regulatory measures with market-based incentives. A central pillar is the CO2 levy on fossil fuels. Sorry, Canada, but that is something we have to do, which encourages a shift towards cleaner energy sources while generating revenues that are partially channeled to our climate fund, supporting emissions reductions projects and innovation. Switzerland's committed to sustainability extends well beyond our climate policies. We actively promote sustainable transportation, fostering innovation that transcends national borders. Switzerland is a frontrunner in electric mobility. Our robust rail network provides a low-carbon alternative for travel, and we are investing heavily in expanding charging infrastructure for electric vehicles. Our cities promote active transportation modes like cycling or walking, improving quality of life and public health at the same time. In tourism, Switzerland champions environmentally conscious travel. We prioritize preserving our pristine natural landscapes while carefully balancing economic growth with environmental preservation. Our tourism industry is increasingly embracing green practices, including energy-efficient hotels, sourced food, and sustainable transportation options for guests. On the bilateral relations side, an updated and expanded joint statement on science, technology, and innovation was signed between Canada and Switzerland in spring 2023, renewing the one from 2018. While research cooperation under the partnership is encouraged across disciplines, the themes of particular focus for the 23-28 period include climate and sustainability, amongst others. Canadian and Swiss universities have numerous partnerships reinforcing the quality of education, research and innovation in both countries. Here are some potential areas of enhanced collaboration: cleaner transportation infrastructure, for example, facilitating the exchange of expertise in electric vehicle technologies, charging infrastructure, development and sustainable public transportation solutions, or sustainable tourism development, as I mentioned before, joint research and development in different areas. As we navigate this pivotal moment for global sustainability efforts, let us embrace the opportunity to build bridges between our two nations, leveraging our collective strength to drive sustainable transportation and tourism practices. Together, let us champion solutions that protect our environment, promote responsible travel, and ensure the well-being of generations to come. Thank you very much, and I give back to my friend Fabian.
Thank you very much, Thomas. And with that, I hand out the microphone to Nina Bader here next to me. She will be the moderator for that panel discussion. So Nina, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much. I think we need the two other microphones as well, right? Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. Also from my side, welcome to today's panel discussion. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. My name is Nina Bader. I'm a part of the board of the Swiss-Canadian Chamber of Commerce, and I work for Foresight, a Canadian clean tech accelerator, where we support startups on their development journey through the whole process. And then we also have sector-specific programs and projects all over the country, where we really support the Canadian goals in decarbonization. So it's a pleasure to be here. Transportation is one of our sectors, so I'm looking forward to this conversation. And I think Fabian and Thomas made it very clear already why we chose this topic, sustainability in tourism and transportation. But I would like to give you a small introduction as well, and start with a few stats and numbers, which should make it pretty clear why we chose this topic. So a quarter of the global greenhouse gas emissions, they come out of transportation. Almost half of all countries worldwide say that transportation is the largest source of energy-related emissions, and for all the other countries, it's the second largest. And the transportation sector accounts for 57% of global oil demand and 28% of total energy consumption. In the tourism sector, the carbon footprint is at about 8%. And that doesn't seem like a high number, but considering that it's one industry responsible for 8%, I think it's still quite significant. And out of those 8%, half of it is transportation as well. So these are a few stats on today's topic. And then to shift it into a more positive perspective, it's also Switzerland and Canada are both leaders when it comes to sustainable transportation, and in the case of Canada, especially Vancouver. And then both countries also have a very strong tourism sector, so it only makes sense to work on the emission reductions. And I'm aware, and we will probably use quite a few terms that might not be well known for everybody, so I would like to clarify two terms. One of them, it's one of the fluffy words that's being used a lot these days, net zero. What does it mean, net zero? Achieving net zero means reducing our greenhouse gas emissions to almost zero, hopefully to zero eventually. And then we will talk about sustainable transport, and that refers to a low and zero-emission modes of transport that are not only energy efficient, but also accessible and affordable. And we will talk about that second part of sustainability as well. And with that, I would like to pass on the word to Alex. If you could introduce yourself and your organization and share your best secret travel hack with us.
This works? Okay, good. Now, I normally don't need a microphone, but I'll use one tonight. So yes, Alex Frigo, Lufthansa Group. To give a little bit background, Lufthansa Group is a conglomerate of many airlines, including Swiss International and Edelweiss. I manage actually the central part of the United States. I'm based out of Chicago, but I have a passion for sustainability and work with the topic, and I'm involved with that on the headquarter basis as well. My little travel hack would be, and I'm going to sound like a typical sales guy when I say this, but you have a Vancouver-Munich flight, and what I love about Munich, it's one of the few airports I hang out in. For anyone, I don't know if anyone's been there, but okay. When I land in Munich, my friends meet me at the airport. we go. There's a little beer garden there. There's I don't know if you're familiar with the Airport. Yeah, it's right there. So it's there at the airport, and I actually think the food is better than what you would get in downtown Munich at a lot of places. And I also feel there's a price ceiling at Munich Airport where it has to be comparable to what you would pay in the city, which Munich is not the cheapest city you're ever going to visit, but this is a very cool hack. I actually enjoy hanging out at the airport with my friends before we go into the city. So that would be my recommendation if you fly Vancouver, Munich someday.
And maybe you can pass it to Oliver.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Oliver Weibel. I'm responsible for Switzerland tourism here in Canada. I moved here last year, so I'm here based in Toronto since May 2023. Switzerland Tourism is the destination management of Switzerland, and we work together here in collaboration with tour operators, with airlines, but also with travel agents, and also a big part of the campaigning that you maybe have seen with Roger Federer last year. So for me, my personal travel hack is something I just recently had to buy, and it's like a little gadget where you actually can put like your socks and shirts and everything in little compartments. And I used to have this like laying around in my luggage, and now it's like organized, and I love it. It's like, okay, it's the best thing ever. It is advertising, it's not sales on anything else, but it's literally you put it in and you be like, oh, okay, this I use Wednesday, Tuesday, and whatever, and you have it ready and it's not wrinkled. So this is my travel hack, really.
I can totally support that travel hack. I use that as well, and it really makes your life easier. Ralph?
Nielsen, Director of Enterprise Sustainability at TransLink. TransLink is the regional transportation authority for Metro Vancouver. We serve 2.5 million people. We move, last year we moved 392 million people got onto our system last year. But we also manage the regional transportation network writ large, all forms of mobility. My travel hack, stay longer. Anywhere. Stay longer. Particularly in Basel.
Thank you for that little add-on. Wendy?
Hi, everyone. My name is Wendy Avis. I'm the director of the Climate and Environment team here at YVR. So welcome to YVR. And Mitsat Kokwelim. I'm learning Musqueam, so that's welcome here. And I just want to acknowledge that we are on traditional and unceded territory of the Musqueam people, and we have a sustainability and friendship agreement with Musqueam, and so we do work quite closely with them. One of the things that I've had the privilege to learn from Musqueam through the knowledge sharing is kind of what previous to the airport being here, how much this was a place where Musqueam would come out when travelers were arriving, and they would see them coming by canoe. They would come out here to meet them and to say, like, are you here for a good purpose, and are you here to trade, or why are you here? And I think, oh, that's kind of what we do at the airport. And you go through customs, and they say, why are you here, or how long are you staying? So it's a real sort of aha moment for me. So my travel hack would be, first of all, I hope you hang out at YVR as well, it's Munich. And then, so my travel hack would be our YVR Express. I don't know if you've experienced, we have virtual queuing here at YVR, so you can pre-book your place in the security line so that you actually go through a separate area and just go right through security. You pick what time you want to go through, and you show up, and you don't have to queue in the regular line. So pro hack.
Thank you, Wendy, also for the land acknowledgement and sharing that beautiful story. So thank you. And I think I'll give it right back to you. Let's talk about sustainability strategies. Some call it net zero strategies or climate action plan. Can you share one point of your strategy that excites you and that will keep you on your toes this year?
Okay. I don't know if I can pick one. So our roadmap to net zero is by 2030. So we're one of the few organizations, I think, that set an accelerated goal. We did have a goal to be net zero by 2050, and then the pandemic hit, and never ones to let a good crisis go to waste. We said, could we actually accelerate our goal, and what would that mean? And rolled up our sleeves and determined that yes, we could, and actually we get benefits from that in terms of moving faster, because your most important year for your emissions is the current year that you're in. So the less they grow, the less you have to reduce. So so excited about our roadmap to net zero, but I think the work that we have now, that's for our airport operations emissions, so Scope 1 and Scope 2, and now we are embarking, looking at all of Sea Island, including all of the energy needs that we're going to need for Sea Island, including any buildings, including future aircraft and aircraft technology, and how are we going to transition the whole airport to a low-carbon energy system. And so we're embarking on that work this year, and I'm excited about that.
Thank you, Wendy. And I'll pass it to you, Alex. I'll mix up the so you have to stay alert.
Turn this back on. Okay. What excites me? It's an interesting concept. We have different pillars, and I think the one that I find fascinating is the concept of intermodality, which means working more with the train systems rather than planes on short-haul flights. And I think the reason I find that fascinating is working in the Americas, and I've talked to colleagues from Toronto to Buenos Aires, the concept sometimes gets a little lost because our train systems aren't necessarily connected. The high-speed rail in some countries does not exist in the Americas, and it's not the airports don't have the infrastructure for it in many of the cities. But what you see in the Lufthansa Group hubs, so let's say Zurich, Frankfurt, Vienna, you'll have let's focus on Zurich and Frankfurt. We've replaced several flights with the train system. You can check your bag, flip through, you can go straight. You go downtown Cologne to Frankfurt, Frankfurt to wherever you want to go, Toronto, Buenos Aires. And it's interesting because when I speak to some clients, I was talking to Oliver earlier, we have a major corporate client that just still won't do it, based in the United States. I don't think they get that this works really well. We do not fly Frankfurt Cologne anymore. The train does it. Same with Frankfurt Nuremberg. And what I'm really proud of is that we were doing this in 5 European countries. We expanded outside of our home markets to start working with the Korean government in South Korea to connect different cities to Seoul, and also in Italy as well. So exciting time.
Thank you. That's very interesting, especially comparing the European and the North American market and the different challenges that it has. Yeah, Ralph, pass it on to you.
This next quarter, we're finishing our version 2.0 of our transition plan to get out of fossil fuels in our bus fleet, everything that's on the road. Our SkyTrain's already all electric. We have North America's second largest electric trolley fleet. We actually have the biggest electric bus fleet in Canada already. 65% of our passenger kilometers every year are already on electric modes, which is awesome. But our biggest footprint is the old diesel bus. So getting out of diesel, and that roadmap to 2040, we want to get zero tailpipe emissions by 2040, starting that implementation of the plan that's coming out. The little kind of key first step, or not first step, it's a little thing about renewable fuels. We're leaning into renewable diesel. We already started with renewable natural gas in our natural gas fleet. That's going to create a 65% or 85% reduction in our GHG footprint across the whole fuel life cycle really quickly. And our ultimate goal is really to move people across the region with zero emissions. Wouldn't it be great if somebody who lives in Maple Ridge or Langley can come to YVR, take the express line, and has done it with a zero footprint? Would be awesome. That's our ultimate goal.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing. Oliver?
Well, I think for us as a tourism organization, we have so many stakeholders from hotel to transportation to gastronomy. And for us, it is really the program itself. So it's called Sustainable, which is like a product in 3 different levels where we incorporate different stakeholders to be part of it. And I think like there, the interesting part is like to come up with products, but also products which are tangible on one side for guests, which say they want to travel sustainable. On the other hand, like the engagement that we are looking for with our stakeholders. Is it going to be in gastronomy, or is it with public transport integration like the Swiss Travel Pass? And I think this makes it very dynamic for us to also like fulfill the goals that we have as a government institution until 2050 to be net zero, and we do have the responsibility in it. And yeah, it really touches on different points, and I think we're going to elaborate a little bit in the questions as well.
Thank you so much. And one of the first topics we would like to cover, and many of you probably heard of it, is renewable fuels, what Ralph shortly talked about. And in the aviation sector, it's actually called Sustainable Aviation Fuels. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's SAF, right? You call it SAF. Okay. So that's liquid fuel that's obviously not made out of fossil fuel. And the sources include waste oil, fats, green and municipal waste, and non-food crops. Crops? Yes. And is that correct? Crops. Okay, we need to cut that out of the video, please. So, Alex, I pass it on to you first, and could you talk about the role that SAF plays for Lufthansa? Maybe share a few numbers and stats with us.
I totally can. Interesting. So I should probably start with saying, first of all, you took the words right out of my mouth, kind of like that Meatloaf song, because I was gonna, when you did the acronyms, I was thinking like, I thought maybe SAF might be part of that, but not all SAF is created equal. So there are different qualities out there. Lufthansa Group purchases Neste, which is one of the highest qualities, but SAF is evolving. The problem at the moment with SAF, there are 2 issues with it. This will eventually change, but this is what the industry is faced with right now, is that for the global aviation demand, so that could be flying from Hong Kong to Manila, for the global aviation demand, there is 0.1% supply of SAF. So if Lufthansa Group had every bit of SAF in the world, we'd be able to operate for 2 weeks. So the supply is not there. And with a low supply, you guessed it, the cost is high. So it's 3 to 5 times more. So part of our push is to get the producers to push more. And part of this is also through the technology, some of the investments that Lufthansa, Swiss, Austrian have made in the industry to make sustainable aviation fuel, really. And it's a fascinating topic. I could go on and on. I'll wait for the next question before I take this in other directions. But it's what I will say is SAF is a generic term, but not all SAF is created equal. So some versions out there are not as good for the environment as others. So just kind of be wary of that and do some research with who the provider is. So yeah.
So the main challenges are supply and the quality of the product.
Well, supply and the price, because one of the things that we're facing in Europe is there's a regulation. There are certain different regulations going into place. I mean, one is going into place in 2025 called Refuel for European Union EU countries. And what it's mandating is that there needs to be anything departing out of an EU country, doesn't matter who the carrier is, it could be Air Canada, it could be Lufthansa, whomever, has to start in 2025 with at least 2% SAF. And that's going to exponentially increase till 2050 for us to meet our carbon goals. So there's a lot of pressure on the producers to make it, because at the moment there's some skepticism of whether they can deliver. That's not really on the airlines. It has to be there and delivered to the airport. The airlines, all airlines are investing in this, and I think even though with competitors we're still united on the cause. You see JetBlue contributing to United Airlines sustainability fund. I mean, we're all in the same, we're all facing the same challenges and fighting the same battle. So, yeah.
With these upcoming changes in 2025, does that mean that ticket prices are going up as well? I'm sure
set
that's not
myself
one.
up for that one, didn't I? I'm of the opinion that if more and more can get produced, and if you look at if the supply increases and if the funding for it can sustain itself, then no. But in its current state right now, if we did it, you would see an increase because it's so much more expensive. And but there are things we're doing about that. The EU also has implemented an incentive program where they're rebating back certain SAF purchases to kind of level it out a little bit. Because taxes are going up in a lot of European Union countries right now. So yeah.
And how is your role when it comes to innovation and research? How you already touched a bit on it, but how do you push the innovation and research component of SAF?
So it's a different part of the sustainability department. I'd like to say I was pushing it. I'm promoting it. I mean, what we're trying to do is to get corporate partners to invest in this because we really need a bigger supply. And we've partnered with a lot of companies throughout the world from all different backgrounds. We've had about 5 or 6 partnerships here in Canada just this year. Smaller, but still it's a partnership. We also have some major partnerships on the research side out of Switzerland with ETH Zurich. Sorry, did I?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's just with the innovation and technology. So it's evolving, and we're just really trying to promote it as much as possible, trying to get more people to invest in it, and hopefully we'll be where we need to be.
Do you want to share a bit more about this ETH collaboration?
Sure. It's a very cool concept. So as I said, SAF is a newer concept, right? So it's going to evolve. And one of the future technologies of SAF is going to be what's called sun to liquid. They also have power to liquid. And what Swiss and Edelweiss have done is they've developed an MOU with ETH Zurich for this sun to liquid SAF. And what that does is it takes carbon directly from the atmosphere and converts it through sunlight, through some way. I mean, science is a bit over my head, but converts it to sunlight to be fuel. And Swiss will be the first commercial airline to operate on solar fuel. That doesn't mean 100% solar fuel. That's not even approved by the governments, whether people can. We can operate max at 50%. We're doing less than that. It'd be cost prohibitive if we did 50%, frankly, on an aircraft. But I find it fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Yes, solar fuel, I find that absolutely fascinating as well. So thank you for sharing a bit more about that. Wendy, maybe it's not that obvious for the audience, but what's airport's role when it comes to SAF?
Yeah, so I don't know if people are aware. So the airport doesn't actually touch fuel. So the airlines purchase the fuel and bring it into the airport. But that doesn't mean that we don't have a role to play, particularly like in the SAF world. So just to reflect a little bit on the nuances here in British Columbia. So Canada has a goal to have 10% jet fuel to be SAF by 2030. British Columbia has a low carbon fuel standard, the only province here in the country that has it, and with a mandate for 3% volumetric SAF by 2030. So we think that, if there currently is no SAF produced in Canada. So what we think that YVR is really well placed to be one of the first places in Canada, if not the first, for that to happen. Because we have the provincial policy, the low carbon fuel policy, we have low emission electricity in terms of finding places to produce SAF. We have the feedstock, which we talked about crops. We've talked about, the HEFA, the fats and oils. Like we've got feedstock here. So we kind of have the stars are aligning here in British Columbia. So we're optimistic about that. One of the other challenges we have is that the U.S., through the Inflation Reduction Act, has invested heavily in SAF with production credits and that. So there's sort of this giant sound of everything flowing to California at the moment. So just everything. So our challenge in terms of that price premium is really to divert the SAF out of the California market and get it here to YVR. So that's what we've been working really hard on. We have a project called Bioport YVR that is has brought together the supply chain to look at all of the things that need to be in place. We're working closely with the BC government to encourage production of SAF here in British Columbia. And I guess, and when we start looking at things like power to liquid and stuff, then we're really starting to talk about the amount of renewable electricity that is going to be needed to decarbonize, and that's like a key issue for the airport. When we look at aircraft, we look at YVR's role in terms of SAF, but also in terms of electric aircraft and hydrogen aircraft, and all of those things are going to require renewable electricity. So that's kind of what we're working on and are excited about. But we do think that YVR will be probably the first place in Canada, hopefully, to have SAF uplifted through the airport.
That's very exciting. Thank you for sharing. It's really interesting to hear. We all travel through this airport, and it's really interesting to hear what happens behind the scenes and how involved you are in the advancement of SAF within the country as well. So thank you. Then when we talk about renewable fuels, and Ralph, you already touched on it a little bit, of course, that for TransLink, that's a big topic as well. So could you explain us why do we need renewable diesel and electrification? Can we just do one or the other?
Oh, that's a great question. So I'm just going to talk about a bus fleet. We have 1,700 types of buses, various shapes and sizes. Those buses have an asset life cycle that we set to in terms of how long can we keep it on the road. It optimizes our return on investment for that particular asset. And so our decarbonization strategy is built upon when those assets are due a replacement, we replace them with, zero emissions technology. That takes a long time with almost 2,000 vehicles. And so some of our assets are lasting well into the 2030s, into the mid 2030s, before they come up for replacement. To switch them earlier in their asset life cycle takes additional capital to do that. So what do you do with existing combustion technology that's on the road, it's going to be on the road for many, many years? You need renewable fuels to overall lower your carbon footprint across the whole fuel life cycle. So fuel switching is a critical strategy. Together with our renewable diesel and our renewable natural gas, we'll be able to meet our 2030 target. We might even be able to exceed that target, but our ultimate goal is to have clean air in the region, to have zero tailpipe emissions. And that's super important for the ecosystem, super important for the planet, super important for human health in the region. And so that's why you need electrification, and we also see a role for hydrogen for particular types of very energy intense routes that we have in our system. Battery electric buses will serve a good majority. Our recent modeling shows 65% of our routes could be battery electric, just like that. So a one-to-one replacement between a diesel bus and a battery electric bus. But it takes time to build the charging infrastructure and the fueling infrastructure for hydrogen. That has to be in place before you actually deploy a battery electric bus, which means a really tight relationship with the utility providers, BC Hydro in particular, and all of our energy providers to make this energy transition happen.
Thank you so much for sharing. I think that's a big learning. When I did my research, I found that a very big learning, that you have to go step by step, and it can't be done from today to tomorrow, right? I want to touch on another aspect of sustainability. that is not as often discussed in this context, and it's the social sustainability. And on the website of TransLink, this is a big component. So social factors such as equity, accessibility, affordability, and in the case of Canada, also reconciliation. So can you elaborate a bit more on what is social sustainability, what does it mean for TransLink, and what commitments do you have to the residents of this city?
So it goes actually back to our the act that created TransLink in 1998. If you read it, which is online, you just type in South Coast British Columbia Transportation Authority Act. It's the third section of the act. And it's about moving people, moving goods. It's about supporting regional economic development and growth. And it's about meeting the environmental objectives of the region and the province. Within the aspect of how the region sees growth, social cohesion, social inclusion, affordability, reconciliation is built into that. So that act really set us up for constantly working with our regional partners to achieve that. What is TransLink contribution to social well-being in the region? So affordability, I'm just going to give a couple examples to the points that you made. Affordability, so we have a real estate development arm of TransLink that was established a few years ago. We have land in and around where we have hubs of transit, SkyTrain station, a bus loop, combinations of both, park and rides. With those land assets, we're working on developing those land assets to bring housing into the region, right? And so we want to contribute to creating transit-oriented communities, complete communities in and around transit, to bring more people closer to that and bring more housing into the region. And affordability right now is a critical challenge for us to solve. That's going to take time, but we're trying to do our part. We also have policy agreements with our member municipalities around transit lines. So the new Surrey Langley SkyTrain that's going out from King George all the way to downtown Langley. We have a policy agreement that talks about requirements for density, complete communities around the transit stations so that people can live closer to transit so they don't need that transportation mortgage in the region. There's two types of mortgages in the region, housing and transportation. And we need to do our part in that regard. Then I think another aspect is about reconciliation. So we live in a region of Indigenous nations, communities. We've never served those communities before. We've never been legally allowed to serve those communities from a transit perspective. So we have these nations that are literally isolated from a transportation perspective. Super important that we move towards providing First Nations transportation. So we have a whole program that is working with the province, the region, and federal government to allow us to deploy transit and get those Indigenous community members into and connected better into jobs, their other families, the urban Indigenous community, right? And then the last example is about accessibility. We try to do all of our accessibility, all of our infrastructure has high levels of accessibility standards to the BC Act, the federal act. But other things that we'd like to lead into is 8,400 bus stops now have Braille signage across the region. It's the first transit authority in, I believe, North America that actually has Braille accessible signage for every single bus stop. Those are the kinds of things that we try to advance forward, so we're providing a really inclusive and accessible system for everybody in the region.
Thank you also for sharing these examples. That's very impressive. And I guess one part of reaching communities is also micro-mobility. And I think Switzerland was probably one of the first countries who had shared car services with mobility. I think it was called mobility. And so I'm wondering, micromobility, what does that mean for TransLink, and how do you work with other partners to evolve that?
So We have strong partnerships with Evo. We have a new pilot working right now on an app that connects us to other forms of mobility providers. So we're going to be testing out how buses and SkyTrains and e-scooters and car shares and Ubers can be all connected, and people can access that service through one solution, right? Again, a way in which to break down barriers related to technology or fares or accessibility to make a complete integrated thing. And then the simple things are about building the space in a bus exchange or a new SkyTrain station, or renovating our old ones to provide bus lockers or places where scooters can be parked or charged and things like that. So that's an ongoing program. It comes with all kinds of challenges with respect to partnerships and who takes care of this new infrastructure. But it's the way in which we have to work on a future where we make it super easy, reliable, consistent to provide all kinds of modes of transportation that suits people's needs.
Yeah, I was very excited to hear about that pilot app. So that's gonna really change how we move around in Vancouver. So talking about TransLink, which is a city-wide public transit network, I would like to move to a country-wide public transit network, the Swiss Federal Railways. The Swiss Federal Railways network is 3,000 kilometers long and transports 1.1 million passengers per day in a country with 8 million inhabitants. I think we can be quite proud of that number. And so Oliver, I'm curious, for locals in Switzerland, I think it's quite common to use public transit. How do you encourage tourists to use our public transit system?
Well, there's different ways, but one of the part was to make it, like, one is communication. First of all, to make the communication that public transport in Switzerland is really the means of transport. You can easily go from any destination to the other. There's trains running all the time, but it's not like that coming from North America that you think of like, yeah, I'm going to a country that I'm going to use the train for all of the transport. So there's also like getting a program together. One is, for example, the Swiss Travel Pass. So the Swiss Travel Pass is a program or is a pass that is designated only for tourists. As a Swiss, being local, I cannot even buy it. So it's really like a program that should facilitate together for tourists to come to Switzerland and be able to use any train, any bus, or any boat around all Switzerland. So you can arrive at the airport and you go up skiing, you know that you have one pass and you can go up to the ski lifts, and there's a discount, for example, for special funiculars. So it is this kind of products that you have to develop together with the stakeholders, and it's not only just the public transport system there, as we worked together with museums, with also funiculars. 500 museums are included in this Swiss Travel Pass. So it's really, in the end, like, getting a product out where you can find a need for solving an issue. And I think like that is one part how we really make it accessible for tourists. Another thing in terms of like communication, yes, we do have the Swiss Travel Pass. And there's the Grand Train Tour of Switzerland, for example, where we connect different points from being cities, but also mountain destination, and we try to make it as easy as possible. So we work together with SBB or other suppliers to say like your luggage service is included. So basically in the hotel, you leave your luggage and it will be brought by public transport to your destination, to the next hotel. You don't have to worry, oh, how can I get in there? It's small things like when we organize fam trips together with tour operators or travel agents, we always use public transport. It's like really we want to make you or like whoever comes to Switzerland as comfortable to use the public transport, and it's like really literally your everyday commute to wherever you go. It's those kind of products that we try to develop and listen to the clients what they need as well, but also to the stakeholders.
It must be quite exciting that you can develop programs for a whole country, which would be unthinkable here in Canada. You already touched a bit on the Sustainable program that you developed. Could you elaborate a bit more why you developed that, considering that you already have all those great offers that you just mentioned now? Why did you develop that, and what were some of the challenges and the wins? out of this program?
Well, I didn't develop it myself. No, it's just part of it. But as a tourism organization of Switzerland, we do facilitate in the end like all stakeholders. And the Sustainable program was really a program that we one way can communicate what is sustainable. So we have like a means of like communication for our partners. That's like one part. On the other hand, we do have the goal to be the most sustainable destination, or like that's like our goal as Switzerland as Switzerland as a country. And you cannot just do it with public transport, so it has to include like more. So it has to be hotel, it has to be development, it has to be produce, it has to be gastronomy. So we came up with, well, over a long period, it was like a development process over 7 years to come up like in the end like with this program, which is sustainable, and you have a level 1, a level 2, and a level 3, basically from basic commitment to really being professional with certification, international certification. And for us, it is not part to exclude, it is really to include and make it visible for partners to why to participate, but then also like for the guests to know, okay, I don't have to worry, I see the sustainable logo, and I know, okay, those participants are taking care and take sustainability serious. And we go one step further. For example, with tour operators as like Kony or TTC for this year, we launched sustainable only products, which means like, okay, the means of transportation for the whole group is done by public transportation. They will sleep in a sustainable certified hotel. They will eat in a sustainable certified restaurant. So we kind of like want to provide the tools so that you can be assured that if you're going to go to Switzerland and use one of those sustainable certified gastronomies, restaurants, hotels, that they are, and we stand for it as Switzerland Tourism and as Switzerland. So that's, yeah, in a nutshell.
Great, thank you for sharing. I think this is it's so important because travel includes so many components where you could be unsustainable, right? With the traveling, with the accommodation, with the food, the shopping, all those things. So you really cover a broad spectrum of challenges. How do you get new participants on board now? Is that still something you're working on, or how are you further developing the program?
Yes, so it's in a different field. So it can be nature spa. I just like one of the projects was called Sustainable Veggie Day. So it's not that we wanted to make Switzerland vegetarian, but we wanted to increase in the end like the use of local produce and like being really seasonal. So we said, okay, Swiss cheese, it is vegetarian, potatoes, it is vegetarian. So a lot of our dishes are vegetarian. The world's oldest, by Guinness Book of Records, the oldest vegetarian restaurant is actually in Switzerland. I didn't know beforehand. But anyway, so it's programs like this which make it appealing for partners of the gastronomy. I want to be part of it. And what we do as a marketing organization, we communicate this. So that's where we don't have a produce in the end. We don't have like a product ourselves, but we can say, this restaurant is participating in the Sustainable Veggie Day. It has this and this menu, so we use different multi-channel. That's like just one part on like how we work, for example, with gastronomy. For this Sustainable Veggie Day, we saved 75 tons of CO2 emissions just for one day of having 1,200 restaurants participating. Things like this, you just have to make it a little bit more tangible on both sides to make them aware of it. Or like, yeah, the Roger Federer campaign with the Grand Train Tour of Switzerland, we sold an increase of 261% of Swiss travel passes from 2019 to 2023. So that's an increase of 260% on public transport. It's things like this, when you talk about the numbers as well, that actually you see that there is an effect on it, and that you actually being part of it benefits you also in terms of financial benefits in the end. Yeah.
It's great that that you create visibility through that, because I think that's also a component of sustainability. Everything right now seems very dark and pessimistic, and sometimes it's good to also focus on there's an oldest restaurant out there that has been here for years and we probably just didn't know about it. So sometimes it's also good to spotlight those. And I've seen on your website, and now you got all those good travel hacks, but I've seen on the Sustainable website there is also a list of sustainable travel hacks of bringing your own bottle, bringing your own coffee mug, which stores that you should support local stores. So that I found that quite interesting. I want to get back to you, Wendy, because you are connected to all three other organizations in some way, and you've touched on it a bit before, that you really used the pandemic as a great opportunity, and you created the digital twin. So what is a digital twin? How did you develop it, and how does it support your net zero strategy?
Thanks. So during the pandemic, we took the opportunity to develop a digital twin of the airport. So we flew a helicopter 500 feet over the airport, and took LiDAR of the airport, and then we partnered with Unity, the gaming company, and they created a digital twin of the airport that is accurate down to a 2-centimeter resolution. So we have a 3D version and a 2D version, and they also did the inside of the terminal as well. So this is our sandbox, our place we get to play. That's one aspect of it. So we can explore ideas that we have and use that digital twin to test things out. We also have brought then a lot of data into that digital twin, so it's helping us operationally. So and I actually have it on my phone. If you want to come see me after, I can show it to you. But we can look and see at any time kind of real-time information on aircraft as they land and move to the gate. And we can tell how many passengers are on that aircraft and how many connections we have. And then it's connected into the information in the terminal. So then we know, like, it looks like there's a lot of people coming into the customs hall. And so, like, it'll go red on the screen. And then we know we need to deploy resources down sort of to the custom hall. So the first kind of parts of that digital twin were more operational like that, and now we've started to look at the sustainability aspects. So a couple of things we've done is, so one is when you look and you can see the aircraft coming in, and you can click up on it and find out, you know, where it's coming from, how many passengers, everything. There's also a button on GHG, so it will real time calculate the greenhouse gas emissions that are being produced by that aircraft. So a couple of things for us. So one is, right now we have data on our greenhouse gas emissions that is basically modeled. It goes into a model. So now we actually have real data. And now we can look and say, oh, you know what, if this aircraft, if it taxied different, or if we gated it different at the airport, then we could save greenhouse gas emissions. So we talked about the cost of SAF, but if we just use less conventional fossil fuel jet, then like that's a win-win. Maybe a win. There might be a third win in there. A lot of wins in there. So that's one of the things that we're looking at. We're also looking then inside the terminal. So we have cameras inside the terminal, and now that watch sort of the security areas, and like as people are moving through as well. So we can say, and so it doesn't watch like a camera, it's a LiDAR, so it measures people as they're moving around. And so we can see, there's a lot of people going through security. But then we were saying, well, if we're using it for that purpose, then maybe we can use it like to change our HVAC system, right? So it's not only if there's a lot of people moving, say, through security, that we need to deploy more resources and people to help with queuing and stuff. It's that, like maybe we can adjust the HVAC directly with that. So we're really using our data and pulling it into that digital twin, both to explore ways that we can be more efficient, more sustainable, but also to pull all the data into one place. First of all, so you know, we don't have to go to 9 different computer screens and programs to try and figure something out. It's all in one place, and then we can make those kind of real-time decisions. I'm just going to put a plug in, because one of the things that we did do, and I just want to acknowledge David McVie from my team, who's sitting there, sorry, David was he's supposed to be taking photos of me from our, don't take. Anyway, so David worked a lot on this. He's working a lot on our roadmap to net zero, and for COP28, we wanted a way to show what we're doing for net zero. So we actually created a digital, like a fly-through of the airport using the digital twin. I don't recommend flying through the in our digital twin, after you've had a few glasses of wine, it is pretty fast at a couple points, but it uses the digital twin, the 3D version, to fly through the airport and stop at all the different places where we are working on our roadmap, where we have decarbonization programs. So it's really, anyway, it's a really great tool, shows the digital twin, but also is a really great way to quickly show people. It's 5 minutes. It saved me multiple 45-minute PowerPoint presentations of yeah. So
is it on the website?
It is on the website, and so I just encourage you to go and check it out and see all the different things we're doing.
That's quite fascinating. Thank you for sharing. And it sounds like YVR is taking quite a leadership role when it comes to net zero, sustainability, and how do we continue with this airport business in the future. So can you tell us a bit more about your leadership position in North America in the airport space?
Sure. So one thing I'll say about the digital twin is that we created this in-house, and we are now commercializing that product. So we are offering it for availability for other airports to use. And that's really the type of thing that we do at YVR. We have innovation is baked deep into our DNA. I don't know if you know, but the kiosks that you use when you move through airports all around the world, they were developed here at YVR, and then we sold them around the world. So we have a long history of kinds of innovation and leadership in that space. In terms of carbon leadership, I said we're one of the few airports that has a target of 2030. Airports around the world participate in a program called the Airport Carbon Accreditation. It's how we get certified in terms of how we're doing on our carbon management. So YVR is at the, up until a couple of months ago, it was the top level, but now they've come out with a new higher. So we got to make the leap up to that next level. But so we're at it's level 4+. It's not very, anyway. But it basically means that we are looking at our own emissions. We're also looking at emissions of our partners, like our airlines and our tenants here on Sea Island. And we are also currently carbon neutral. So currently we're purchasing offsets. We have been since 2020. And then we're moving towards net zero, reducing emissions. So we're one of 3 airports, I think, in North America to achieve that level, and the only one in Canada. So I would say for us, we also partner a lot with the European airports. We really learn, because Europe tends to be a little further ahead in terms of the regulatory framework, we look to a few of those airports, Schiphol, in Zurich for sure. And actually the Airport Carbon Accreditation, it's a Zurich airport that's been one of the driving forces behind that. So we that's where we look also for inspiration, and then our leaders in North America, and we share within North America with the other airports. I think a big thing as airports are working on, I talked about this, is this need for electricity as we decarbonize aviation, which is a hard to decarbonize sector. Is that this need for renewable electricity is like for the airports. When you think about all of the equipment that you see out there servicing the aircraft, shifting that to electricity, that's all got to be coming off of the terminal, like that demand for electricity. And like if we have an electric aircraft pull up and need to charge, like I don't know if the lights are going to dim, like we really, we need to kind of think about how that electricity is going to be provided. And I started off at the beginning saying, the airport doesn't touch fuel, but if you think about electricity as a fuel, now we do. So it's really changing that infrastructure in airports. And so I think we're at the forefront in terms of this energy strategy that we've embarked on, really looking at that. There's very few airports in the world that are embarking on that, and really the leading airports are looking at how are we not just a transportation hub, but how are we an energy hub? And that's really what we want to be. So so really proud of our leadership position, and it's been something that's been in our DNA for a long time here at YVR.
Very interesting. Thank you so much for sharing. I think we all are going to get a whole new level of appreciation for YVR. I would like to open it up to the audience now. If somebody has a question, please feel free. Yes?
I have a question for Rolf about indigenous communities serving the TransLink.
Yes.
Not allowed to serve?
No.
So who is this, our federal government?
Yes.
So the low-hanging fruits they're not going to pick. Sounds like that would be for me an easy approach of essentially building the relationship.
Yep.
And so, can you explain it a little bit more? I understand that you said you can't build a bus stop. How does
Yep.
how does this work? I mean, you can't.
It's
really hard to
it's
understand.
essentially
Right?
it.
It's the first time I'm hearing.
It's essentially it. Imagine. Well, I live in Port Moody, so imagine Port Moody has a section of it, 6 blocks or 10 blocks of downtown Port Moody where you can't have a bus stop. Like, imagine that. And so it is as simple as figuring out what is the relationship that we need to build to allow us to provide a bus going down a gravel road to, the Catsea Nation in Pitt Meadows and offer them a regular transit service on a 15-minute interval. It's as simple as that. But it's also very complicated because it's not really our jurisdiction. And then who is going to pay for that, right? Right now our service is paid through the fare box, through property taxes, a little BC Hydro tax that everybody pays, fuel tax. So it gets to be a really complicated question, a really complicated problem very quickly. But it's so important, right? Indigenous communities have been here in time immemorial, and we need to do a better job on connecting them with everybody else in the region. So, and being respectful in that relationship.
Thank you, Ralph. Yes?
Also overall, I'm dealing with travelers, visitors, or tourists. For the last few years, I started to use Evo more and also TransLink.
Yep.
But I was wondering, because it's also bicycles part of the app, right?
Yep.
Wouldn't it be good to have this, or I think for TransLink there's only 1-day pass at the moment, there is no 7-day pass, or maybe 3-day pass. Because I think it would be very good to have promote visitors and travelers coming into Vancouver Hotel or the special hotels. I'm part of the CTJ, out of Tour Guide Association in Vancouver, to promote when people are coming to us, listen, use this pass, 1-day pass or 3-day pass to promote this.
Yes.
I probably have to download the app and then using it.
Yeah. The aspect of providing passes and multi-day passes to tourists and products specifically for tourists is something that our customer focus groups, our customer care group, our customer experience group are working on. We've got a whole, I think, 32 customer experience action plan. The ability for us to do fare integration, right? The ability for us to connect tourists to destinations, nature, museums, events. You'll see big things happen with FIFA coming to Vancouver in a few years. So there'll be some changes. Taylor Swift? Yes, Taylor Swift too.
We have a Swiftie in the crowd.
One of the things we're working on is with BC Ferries and BC Transit, right? BC Transit serves the rest of the province. We serve Metro Vancouver. But as you go out to the Fraser Valley towards Abbotsford and Chilliwack, that's not TransLink anymore. It's BC Transit. So fare integration where somebody can hop on a bus in Chilliwack, go through TransLink, and then hop on a ferry and go to Victoria. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Sounds like the TransLink travel pass.
We have a lot to learn. Yeah. We have a lot to learn.
Any other questions? Yes?
Hi, Jimmy Kaminsky from HSI Zero Waste. We understand that a lot of the airports are working on Scope 3, so reducing their waste and trying to reduce their emissions through reducing their waste. How are the airlines, so for Lufthansa, how are the airlines supporting that initiative with the waste coming off the airline?
You probably have some answers to that.
So we're reducing single-use plastic. So if you go on board any Lufthansa Group flight, you'll see that, for instance, even things like, let's say, the toothbrushes or whatnot are going to no longer be plastic. They'll be made of something more sustainable. I believe it's bamboo, but don't quote me on that. The food of how it is served, you know, if you think of how it was maybe 5 years ago versus now will be more sustainable packaging. We are looking to eliminate single-use plastics by next year. So that's the goal. So yeah.
That's good news. That's
Into
good.
that.
Should I do a follow-up?
Sure.
Are you doing more than just eliminating plastics, like looking at reusables or other ways of reducing waste completely, or just?
When you say waste, so I immediately thought like food and plastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Just want to, a lot of the waste coming off of international flights, there's rules around having to need to go to landfill, whether it's made of bamboo or made of paper. So just wondering if there's a way of reducing the overall generation of that waste completely.
I'm sorry if I'm not following. The overall generation, do you mean?
So like a reusable spoon versus a plastic spoon that you get rid of, or a reusable cup versus a plastic cup that you're having to throw at the end of the flight.
So is the question, it's whether it's reusable, whether it's sustainable or not, it's still getting thrown away. What do we, like, how are we countering that? Is that the question, or?
I can help, Jamie.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. So one of the things is for international flights into Canada, the waste is required to be incinerated. So you might be giving out like bamboo utensils or anything, but when they get to the airport here, they're required by law to be incinerated. And so I think the question was around, would you ever have like silverware, like reusable utensils, like that you would wash and reuse in order to like reduce your waste? That
I haven't heard that. I mean, you have it in different classes of service. What I don't know, and I got to admit, I'm getting a little out of my swim lane talking about that. I mean, thank you for jumping in. But I also, off the top of my head, wonder, there's a waste aspect of even cleaning materials and whatnot. But short answer is I really don't know, but I haven't heard it.
So Jamie, one of the things we've been doing, I'm also the chair of the Canadian Airport Council Environment Committee, so that's our airports industry group. So we have approached the Food Inspection Agency with a request for them to relook at this regulation because it's an outdated regulation that was largely put in to prevent like hoof and mouth disease, which we've got some indication from them that they would be willing to work with us, and also a few of the airlines have also approached to say, can we please look at this because it doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So fingers crossed. They've said they're willing to talk to us, so we're going to start to engage, and hopefully we can work on that. So just so you know, it's different in the United States. So in aircraft, a Canadian aircraft that goes to the U.S. can recycle their waste, but the U.S. aircraft coming to Canada, they have to incinerate it. So it's just the regulations around. I mean, and Lufthansa, like you're landing in how many different stations, and everywhere you land, the recycling rules are different. Like such a challenge. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we have time for one more question. Somebody? Yes.
Hi, James Howie here, Canada. Thanks to the panel today. Great to hear the discussion. We hear it closely in Air Canada. We have a lot of our travel trade partners in the audience here tonight. One of the big questions we face as an industry is sustainable tourism and around the topic of social license. And when we think of Switzerland, that topic was evident before pandemic and post-pandemic, where you're seeing a bigger push around the idea of social license from the communities that are impacted by tourism. And we see regulatory changes happening in markets like Venice and cruise ships being regulated now. Number of visitations are being limited. And I'm wondering what the sense is on the ground in Switzerland in terms of social license and the impact of tourism and how you're curbing that in the local markets in a small country like Switzerland, where you have high demand and a finite amount of resources to be able to provide a tourism product.
Oh, shoot.
big question. We all face it.
Good question. At the moment, we are not aware that we license or that we shorten like any capacities in any of the destinations. We try to one of the points that we have, for example, that Glacier Express is one big topic that we have, which is like the panoramic train that goes from Zermatt to St. Moritz, and we have capacity restraints. Not that it's just like it's nice for us, it's fully booked all the time, but we have constraints from the tour operators and the travel agents saying that we don't have enough capacity. So there we try to develop different products to use, like the Gotthard Panorama Express doing different routes. Those are points, but in terms of limitations, no, I'm sorry, no, I don't. Maybe I don't get that question, but we don't.
It's more of the impact on the ground in the communities where they're receiving tourism, they're seeing inbound visitation, and is there a sense that there's pushback from local communities? Because we see some of these flare-ups with, rejecting tourism in essence, more from the communities that are impacted by high volumes of people. And maybe it's perhaps not as big an issue in Switzerland as it might be in Italy and other markets where there's different sorts of demand and a finite amount of space for people to move.
Well, we do see it in some, like we do have maybe 2-3 top destinations which are seeing that they're, for example, if they want to go shopping, there's too many tourists in the peak season if you go in July, August. And yes, you can see that, but it's very limited to a few weeks which are peak season. And we are here working also in terms, it's our kind of like job to also make, for example, seasonal traveling more appealing, to say like, okay, why don't you travel in off-season? Why is like autumn, for example, for Canada, it's the first time ever that September was the best visited month for the whole of the year for Switzerland. Before it was always July, August. And we look into the Asian market, or we look in the North American market, but also Swiss market. Everybody has holidays in those particular weeks, and obviously you get to like a stress point in those particular. So that's why we try to incentivize, but also like different destinations to have like longer opening seasons, for example, for funiculars, so that we can like stretch our seasonality a little bit more, and make it also like more attractive to that not everybody has to work to travel basically in the same period of time. But in terms of like really destinations, or like one destination saying we don't want tourists, no, I think like those tourist destinations which live of tourism, they want tourism all year round. I think like that's what it is, and that's the demand that is going towards us to say, or the question towards us to say like, can you help us to like spread it around the year, not to have like 1-2 weeks which is peak.
Right. No, I think that's probably the key message then, is about deseasonalizing the business perhaps. So good footnote for the rest of us in the trade who help sell the destination. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Absolutely.
So thank you so much for the active listening and all the questions. We will now test how actively you actually listened, because Ralph was so kind to bring us a few TransLink goodies. So we have 2 pair of socks, and then this bottle, which I think is quite a cool bottle. And I'll ask 3 questions. The first one who gets the answer gets one of these. So please don't be shy. First question: we didn't talk about this today, so it's a guess. What's the percentage of trips in the Metro Vancouver region that are made on transit? The trips in Metro Vancouver, how many? The percentage of those? 57, 20? One more guess? 25? 35? So far Fabian is the closest. He can't have the socks, so it has to be someone else. Another guess? 15? Okay. 20, right, Ralph? Around 20%. Who said 15? Okay. Here we go. Sorry, Fabian. Here we go. Then the next one is, and this one we mentioned, so how long is the train network in Switzerland? 3,000. I think 3,000 I heard here. Thank you, Jeff. And now the last one for the bottle. How long could Lufthansa fly if they have all the SAF in the world right now? Yeah, that was fast. Here we go. 2 weeks. And with that, I would like to thank the panelists, Alex, Oliver, Ralph, Wendy. It was an absolute pleasure to talk with you. Thank you so much for sharing all this information about your organizations. I hope you can leave on a positive note. I know it's a heavy topic sometimes, but I think we heard a lot of good things. So good initiatives happening. So thank you so much for being here. I'm sure the panelists will stay around a bit for if you have any individual questions. And with that, I think we move on to the networking reception. Oh, no, we have one more thing for the panelists, right?
Yeah, we have some presents.
Yes, okay. There can't be a Swiss panel without some chocolate. Do you want to say any final word?
No, thank you so much also from my end. So I hope you can stay a bit with us. So if you have more questions, go and pick their brains. I think they're happy to answer if they know the answers. Please network. We will probably clear some chairs out now. Buffet is outside, so grab some food. The bar is open again, so enjoy the time, and then we will probably 8:15, 8:30ish, we will have the draw then for this Swiss Travel Pass.